stond.
Because there was a specific flight that were coming in. It was a meddling flight, I remember it. It was like something like an air ambulance that came in to look for passengers. Unfortunately, they were not told anything. They said wait until further notice again. So that's when the crew members decided to stay at the Holiday Inn.
Alberto G., who does not want to appear recognizable, states that the crew, a doctor and a nurse, of the Medjet stayed in the Holiday Inn resort for a short while, and there Alberto heard about the purpose of the plane's being.
Then he explained to me, yes, that the purpose of this flight was to come over here, get Natalee wrap her up, that nobody knows that it's her, get her to the airport and get her out of here. That's why the flight came here. I said, but how could you do something like that? If she was supposedly kidnapped, you don't have her passport. Yeah, don't worry about that, that will be all handled.
2 days after Natalee disappeared, something very odd happened, according to Angela.
The next night was the evening that I received the phone call for the $4,000. And this $4,000 was for someone who knew where Natalee was, and Natalee did not want to be found. She did not want to go home. And they said, look, she doesn't want to go home. All I want is $4,000. I'll tell you the location of Natalee. You can tell Beth I have her daughter. She just doesn't want to go home.
A woman called her and said she knew in which crack house Natalee was. Julia Renfer was present as well when the call came in. To their great surprise, Natalee's family denied the tip.
I went to Beth. Beth just said no, no, no. I had to talk with Jeff. Jeff came to the newspaper, and he says, look, I can come up with $1,000. And I said, how can you come up with $1,000 when tomorrow Julie and I know there's a $10,000 reward out there? Why can't you come up with $4,000? What is so hard amongst you 7 to come up with this money? It's $4,000 compared to $10,000. Wouldn't you want your daughter found tonight before this $10,000 reward happens tomorrow? I mean, I would give my life.
Eventually, Beth was willing to pay $3,000 for the tip. Strangely enough, the police were not informed of this act. The family went to the crack house to pick up Natalee.
The plan was to go into the house, to pay the money, to get Natalee, and of course we knew that the Medjet plane was already waiting, and we had a route to get to the airport so that she could leave right away, immediately.
But things happened differently, according to Renfro. Natalee's family members couldn't control themselves and stormed the crack house.
There was a group of approximately 12 people from Alabama that were with us trying to locate Natalee, and one of them decided that they would jump the wall, and the whole street went crazy. People were coming out of their houses, horns were blowing, there was a lot of noise.
Natalee was not found. 3 important days passed.
The whole plan just didn't work. The Medjet plane left the next day, and at that point, then a reward was announced. Then all the television crews and all the interviews and all the manipulations on television.
And from that moment, the urban police started their very hard task. At first, Gerald Dompik was very self-confident.
I still think that a crime like this cannot go unsolved on Aruban soil.
But what really happened behind closed doors, he tells us only now, years later. People have to know how things happened, and that is why I say that the investigators were threatened literally.
En daarom zeg ik ook, het onderzoek, de onderzoekers, die werden letterlijk bedreigd.
Dompik was in charge of the investigation for many months. He prefers to talk without showing his face. Dompik states that he wanted to interrogate Natalee's family. I wanted to talk with the family as part of the investigation and to get answers about Natalee's background, her stepfather's background, the financial situation of the stepfather, and the links with highly placed people, for example in Colombia. Well, we never got the chance to do so.
Daar hebben wij nooit de kans toe gekregen.
Dompik was very much interested in the background of Natalee's stepfather, a very influential American businessman. The FBI, involved in the case at that time, forced Dompik to leave the family in peace. One day, we were at the police office when we literally were threatened by the American consul. In my room, literally threatened by the American consul and the chief of FBI in the Caribbean. I can say this now because I'm not working with the police anymore. They come in and say, "What are you doing with the American side? Why?" The FBI attaché is asking me why I am investigating the American side. I answered, "How dare you? First thing you do in an American investigation of this kind is to look in the family. We were obstructed, denied, threatened when we wanted to look into the American side." Dompik, who resigned last year, states that the highly placed politicians interfered in the case. This interference went very far, very high up in American politics. Natalee's family had high connections. Names like Condoleezza Rice, Dick Cheney, etc. were mentioned. So, the background of the family stayed out of reach, and according to Dompik, this obstructed the investigation in a serious way. It's not about Natalee. Unfortunately, it's not about Natalee. If it was about Natalee, everything would have turned out differently. It's not about Natalee. It is nearly about the White House. It is nearly about the relationship between the United States and the Netherlands.
Het camerawerk in deze reportage was van Dolf van Stapelen. We hebben justitie op Aruba om commentaar gevraagd.
The Justice Department in Aruba did not want to give us any reaction.